also be looking at some ideas to answer them. So, all right. Okay, so first of all, we said, I think yesterday we were looking at some sample responses. Right? We said that we were going to go through that today. So remember that in this task, they basically ask you something. They give you a per choice question. So that means that you have 2 or more options. And you need to choose one of the options and justify it, which means explain why you chose that option. So, okay. So I remember yesterday we did these ones, right? Please don't forget to turn your cameras on whenever you have a chance to. So yesterday we did this one. You guys did it, right? I remember we did one each. So we're going to listen to how somebody responded and see what we can say, what comments we can make on those responses. Okay, the first one was, do you agree or disagree with this sentence that we can learn a lot from making mistakes? So agree or disagree with that statement. We can learn a lot from making mistakes. Let's see what somebody responded. Okay, I'm going to play it.
The woman expresses her opinion of the...
Oh my God, it's not that one. It's weird. Okay, hang on. Okay, what's this one here? I'm gonna play it.
I totally agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes. First of all, we always remember how our past mistakes made us feel, and since they usually make us feel really terrible, we try to avoid repeating them so we don't feel that way again. We also take deliberate action to avoid it. For instance, last year before my big science midterm, I made the mistake of playing video games all day long. As a result, of course, I failed the test and I felt miserable. But I learned from that it's very important to study and to prepare for tests. So the next year, during exam season, I buckled down, I studied, and I learned a lot.
Okay, so that was a sample response. We're gonna see what we had there. So what did you think of that response? How was it? Any comments?
I think it was very complete.
Yeah, right, it was complete. Anything else you want to add? So yeah, it was definitely a complete response. And it obviously doesn't necessarily have to be like that. When we speak, that was probably prepared, right? It was a pre-prepared response. It wasn't like, I don't think that that person prepared for 15 seconds and improvised the response. If you notice, he didn't make pauses, he didn't hesitate, not even once. And he didn't use filler words, stop to think, or anything, because it was pre-prepared. But I think we can maybe take a look at some things and, I don't know, things that he said, tools that he used, and try to see what we can say about that. So first of all, you notice he had an introduction, right, where he stated his position, and he only had one reason. So he had one reason that mistakes make us feel terrible, and then we avoid repeating them. And then he had one example too, right? He had this example of how he didn't study for this midterm, I think. He didn't have a conclusion. So one introduction, a reason, and an example, which we said was the basic structure. Now, starting with the introduction, one thing we could say is it was agree or disagree, right? And he said, I totally agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes. So this is actually something that you guys can do, and I suggest you do, which is using these adverbs. Okay, it makes you sound more sure of what you're saying. So in your intro, you can always try to use them. I totally agree. I certainly disagree. I strongly oppose to this idea. I most certainly would choose these. So I would definitely say, so try to use those adverbs. Okay, I'm gonna write it down. I strongly disagree, definitely, certainly, absolutely, totally. You can use them in your response. It makes you sound more sure of what you're saying. Now, another thing we have is he basically copied and pasted, right, from the question. He said, we can learn a lot from making mistakes. I agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes, which is exactly what was in the question, right? In the question was, do you agree that we can learn a lot from making mistakes? So he didn't paraphrase. He just repeated what he had there, which is okay. It's totally okay. It's no problem if you just repeat, but you don't have to, right? Sometimes you have longer claims. Maybe we can look at an example of another one. I don't know. Okay. For example, this one is a long one, right? Students should never be allowed to submit assignments after the due dates. And it can be even complicated to repeat it. So in those cases, you don't have to repeat the statement. You could just say, I totally agree with that statement. That's another option. Or with the given statement. I totally agree with the given statement or with that claim. Those are things you could say if you don't want to repeat, maybe waste time there if it's long. What else? You can also change the verb agree or disagree. If you want more vocabulary, do you guys know another verb for agree? Another word?
Support.
Support, yes. You could say, I totally support the idea that, yeah, or that idea. Any other one? There's one more, which is advocate. Advocate. You could also say that, yeah, I totally agree with or advocate that idea. That's another verb that you can use. That's when you have agree or disagree. Now, when you have, do you prefer this or that? One way not to repeat, I prefer to watch the news. For example, this one here, right? Do you prefer to watch television news programs every day or only now and then? So if you want to say, I prefer to watch television news program every day, if you want to go with the first option, you could say something like, I prefer, or another one would be, I would rather, or I'd rather, right? And then you can say, I would prefer, maybe that would be better. If I had the choice, I would prefer, or I would choose. And then you can try to say the latter or former option. Or choice, if you want. So the former option would be the first one that's mentioned. And the latter option is the second one. Okay, so if you don't want to repeat, you could say, I would prefer, if I had the choice, if I were asked to choose, I would rather, or I would prefer the former option. That's another way to not to repeat when you have prefer. So those are ways for the introduction, okay? Some ideas maybe. Make it short, that's the only thing that matters. Then something else that I noticed is that he has a lot of transitions, right? For example, one is first of all. What other transitions does he have here?
For instance.
For instance, yes.
But, so.
Exactly, but, so. As a result too. So he has lots of them. Now, some of them are formal, like first of all is formal, for instance, is also formal, and as a result. But and so could have been replaced with other more formal ones, maybe, or more vocabulary too. So can you think of other words to say but and so?
However.
Great. However, for but. And for so?
Therefore.
Therefore, great. So for so, could be therefore, ends, that's, I don't know, very many. My advice, just memorize two. Two for that, two for so, two for, I don't know, first, for instance, two for each one. So yes, those are some. What else? If you notice, the example is about 60% of the response, right? Or maybe 50 without counting the introduction. So it's pretty long, but it's great for grammar, right? Because he's using different tenses. He's saying, last year, before my big science midterm, I made the mistake of playing video games all day long. So I made the mistake. I felt miserable. I failed the test. Next year, I buckled down, I studied and learned a lot. So he's using different tenses, although it's just a simple past, right? Another thing you can do is at the end, you can add a conditional sentence if you guys are willing to do that. So if it's a story like this one here, if it's a story in like a personal experience that you're telling, you could add a conditional at the end. So you could say, so if I hadn't done, or if I hadn't made that mistake, I wouldn't have learned this lesson, right? So with that conditional, it's kind of like a short closing idea, and it's also great for grammar. And you're just relating your example to your reason. So you're saying, if I hadn't done this, then this other thing wouldn't have happened. So if I hadn't made that mistake, I never would have learned the lesson. So you're kind of emphasizing that it's important or to make mistakes in order to learn, right? That you learn from making mistakes. So you can add that conditional, and it's a third conditional. So maybe I can write it down. If I hadn't made that mistake, I wouldn't have learned less. So something like that, if you want, right? Completely optional. What else? I'm saying that because it's good for grammar, right? You could even do an inversion in there. You could say, had I not made that mistake, I wouldn't have learned the lesson. But it's totally optional. What else? As for vocabulary, what do you think of the vocabulary he's using?
Deliberate.
Yes, deliberate, that's a great word. Take deliberate action to avoid it. Sounds really technical. Yeah. In general, you're gonna notice that you have a lot of adjectives, right? So that's a quick way to improving vocabulary. So terrible, miserable, he's not repeating, right? I felt miserable, I felt, or makes us feel terrible. Important, is very important to study and prepare for the test. Deliberate is also an adjective. So yeah, that maybe that some things we could say. And also he's emphasizing, right, which I think we were talking about this yesterday, it's important to emphasize how the example illustrates your opinion. So he's emphasizing, I buckled down, I studied, and I learned a lot, which is the ultimate result, right? The result of this whole experience, of this mistake, is that he learned. So that's important to do too. Okay, guys, any more comments that you could make in this response? Okay, so now we're gonna do another one. We're gonna listen to it, and you guys are gonna tell me the things that you liked about the response that you would maybe change or do better. So we're gonna listen to this one here. Okay, do you think it's a good idea for children to help their parents with household chores as soon as they're old enough? Use details and examples. I'm gonna play it.
I think it's a great idea for kids to do household chores as soon as they're old enough. First of all, this can teach children some really valuable skills that will come in handy later in life. For instance, I was responsible for cooking breakfast for my little brother every day before we went to school when we were both kids. As a result, when I went away to college as a teenager, I stayed really healthy because I could cook my own meals instead of always going out for fast food like my friends and classmates. Secondly, parents and children can do household chores together, and this gives them a chance to bond. As they work on things like cleaning dishes or cooking food, they can chat, and the kids might open up about what's going on in their lives.
Okay. So what did you think of that one? Here we have the transcript. So first of all, it was really long, right? It felt more than 45 seconds. It was 46, but it felt longer than that. And you obviously don't have to do something like that. Again, this is just something, this is a sample response. That's why it's called a sample response. It's not something real. So what do you think? What could you say about the response?
It was a long response, and I don't know if I could come up with something like that invented if I hadn't experience. If I didn't
Yes.
have experience, it would be very hard.
Okay.
Yes, I think it was very technical. For me, the other response was more realistic. This had it had very complete vocabulary. I saw that, but I don't think it's like very realistic for me.
Okay. Yes, and you're right. It's not realistic at all. This probably, I mean, this person spent time, I think, preparing. It was probably a red response, so I don't think he like made it up at the second. So yeah, it's not a realistic response. But maybe the idea, two reasons, right? It has two reasons. One of them is longer because the first one has a personal example, and the other one is just like another reason that's casually added at the end. So we can work with something like that. It has a lot of transitions too. And yes, as you're saying, maybe the reason is the hardest part to think about, or not the reason, but the way to put the words together and express that idea. Maybe I would say the example is not. I mean, you need to try to do that, make up stories, because you're probably not gonna have an experience for everything that you're gonna be asked about. Now, this one, yes, it's very elaborated. So I was responsible for cooking breakfast, and that helped me cook my own meals when I was in college. So it's interesting, but yeah, it's not that realistic. What other example could you guys have given here? If we're trying to say that when kids when kids help their parents do chores, they learn some skills that are going to be useful in later in their life. So what example can you give for that? Can anybody make up something? What other things could we say? Shamir, what would you say? What example can you give?
I think that the children can learn the responsibility in a better way for making the work from the school and another type of works. But like this like this example, I don't have a clear idea.
Okay. All right. So yes, they learn to be more responsible when they help their parents. And yes, it would be nice to think of an example, right? So always think about it that way. So try to be more specific. Like for example, here the idea is helping parents do the chores. So you need to try to think of one chore extra. Maybe it could be doing the dishes. Maybe it could be what he has here, cooking breakfast or making dinner, or I don't know, anything at all. Think of one chore and then think of how that might be useful, right? Or how that makes you be more responsible. So yes. Okay. So let's practice that. Let's do some practice. See what we have. Okay. Okay, guys. So this is going to be the first question. It says the university decides to remodel the dormitory and add a new space to it. Which space do you recommend to add to your dormitory? A cafe, a study room, or a game room? And you'll have 15 seconds to prepare your response. I'll let you know. Okay, guys, so does anyone want to try?
Okay, I will start.
Okay, that's great. So let me make these. Okay, I don't know. Okay, sorry. All right, so you can go now.
If I had asked to choose, I'd say that the game room is the better option because, first of all, after studying all day in the university, it's important to have a break. Then then the friends can relax, and after the students relaxed, they can study in a better way, and they can learn all the content and apply it into the tasks, into the works given by the professors. And for example, when I was in the university, we had a room with a PlayStation, and me and my friends always were playing that. After doing that, we always went to the library to study, and we had a good score after that. I'm sorry, I can't see my time.
You couldn't see? It was here. Can you see it now?
Yeah, but I didn't know when I had to stop.
Okay, so it's when the 45 seconds are over. But it's fine, it's good for practice. So yes, you went over the time. You didn't have enough time for the example. Everything you made it to the response was the reason, which is okay for now. So what could I say? Just try to maybe make your reason shorter. Make it one line right now. And then if you feel that you have more time, then we can make that longer. But for now, just try to go with something shorter for the reason and try to move on right off to the example. Okay, maybe that's what I could say. Now, as for the way you're starting your intro, careful there. So you're saying, for example, if I had asked, right? Careful there. It would be if I were asked. If I were asked, like si me preguntaran, if I were asked, I would go for the game room. Okay? Careful with that one. And one more thing, which is also good to know. When you have two options, like if it were cafe or study room, you can say, I would say that the study room is the better option. If you have two, maybe I can write it down here. When you have two options, you can say this is the better option. Okay, I'm gonna move this. But when you have more than two, let's say you have 3, 4, like in this case, you always need to use a superlative. So you need to say when you have 3 options or more, you need to say the best option. Okay, careful there. So maybe that's what I could say for the introduction, but everything else was great.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do another one. So this one here says, do you prefer to work from home using a computer? Or although I think we did that one. I remember we did that one.
We did someone similar, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I did one that is very Similar.
It was about courses, university
Yes.
courses or courses in general.
Oh, okay. All right, then we can do this one. Yes,
But
because
it's similar.
yeah, it is, right? But it's different to like learning remotely or working remotely. It's not the same. Okay, and actually that's something that I've seen a lot, like online or technology versus the traditional way in work or academic scenarios. But it's okay. So this one here says students should never be allowed to submit assignments after their due dates. Do you think that it's a good idea for professors not to allow late assignments? And you'll have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay. Who wants to go now? Maybe Luciana, wanna try?
Okay. I guess.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. In my opinion, I think that professors shouldn't be tolerant with students in letting them present their assignments late, because it's not similar to the way work life goes. For example, my teachers in college, they emphasize that we had to hand in our work early, which made me planify my time. And when I got my internships, it helped me to deliver and not my boss not to get mad at me.
Okay, perfect. So I like how you manage your time. I think you have already mastered that. So you have just enough time to go with the reason and the example and explain it and develop that. And your example is really showing what you're saying. So you said, so when I was in college, my professors asked me to, or emphasized that we needed to hand in our assignments on time, and that helped me later in my internship. So that's great. No comments on the content, I'd say. No comments really. Just maybe careful with some vocabulary related to student life. So, for example, in the first one you said present assignments, but in the second one you already said handing. And same thing, teachers and professors, right? Professors for college. So maybe that. Nice. Okay. So another one that, let's see. Maybe, okay, this one here. So it says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is better to reward employees with job perks and benefits instead of raising their salary. And you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so do you want to try, Rodrigo?
Okay.
Okay, me go.
Personally, I disagree with that idea. I think employees should be um, when they do their job well, they should have a raising in their salary. Normally, that demonstrates that they have been doing very well. Um, the job market now, I don't have an idea, not really, what to say about this. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So you couldn't come up with the idea in the preparation time.
No. I don't know why, but always I have like pros and cons in everything, so I can't come up with something with only something. In my
Okay.
mind, it's like never a close-ended question. Those kind of questions.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's
Yeah, I
hard.
get. But if you have pros and cons, give me a pro, for example. Give me a pro.
A pro about perks and benefits.
Yes.
Um,
Or if you want, raising the salary. Or a con if you want. Just something that you.
about raising the salary, the job market, other employers are looking for a good employee, so they're looking for prepared employees, and when they see one of them that is not rewarded accordingly with what they should be rewarded, they will change the job and switch from company to company. So that would be um, bad for the company. I don't know. That will be
Okay, that's a great idea, actually. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So yes, if you don't raise the salary, basically the employees are gonna switch jobs, right? They're gonna go work for some other company that's gonna pay them more. So that's great. That's a great idea. You can work with that. So don't think about what you actually think, right? Don't be like, because yes, if we were to analyze these, both have pros, both have cons, advantages and disadvantages. But once you got that idea, then go with that option. So if you're saying that raising the salary has a pro, or that not raising them it has a disadvantage, then just go with that option. So you say, I totally disagree, since if you don't pay them enough, or if you don't raise their salary when they're working well, then they're gonna go looking for another job. And you just explain what you just explained to me. Okay, so I know that it's not really a
example.
complete
Like,
thought because we're not considering everything, but it's more than enough for this specific question.
okay, but the example in this case, I'm not like I don't have one.
I mean, the example doesn't need to be that complicated either. Like if you're saying if you don't pay them or if you don't raise their salary, they're gonna switch jobs. Tell me about a case when that happened. You can make it up. You can say, I, for example, was working in this paper company, and even though I was doing such a great job, they didn't raise my salary. Instead, they were giving me extra benefits that I didn't need. Therefore, I felt the need of changing companies, right? So I'm not adding anything new to what you already said. I'm just trying to make it personal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
try to, like, it's your reason, but trying to make it in a story. Or you could say, I know of this friend who wasn't earning as much as he should have been earning, so he asked me to help him look for another job. So just say the same, but try to make it into an example. Or you can also go with a fact. You could say, in fact, I recently read that the number one reason why people change jobs, or why employees are not satisfied with their current jobs, is because of their salary. So they don't feel like they're being paid enough, and they would prefer to be, or they would prefer their salaries to be raised rather than, I don't know, being benefited with health insurance, for example. So I don't know. Just repeat what you're saying, make it more specific.
I tend to talk about longer than 45 seconds, and in my mind it's like, oh my gosh, I'm running out of time, and my
Okay.
example is gonna be so long, and that's why I just stopped. I thought about that example, or I mean that reason, but I thought that would take me so long to complete all my sentences and my explanations. That's
Just
I
try
have to
and
come up with something quickly and explain it fast. Yeah.
I know it's hard, but just try and get started. Even if you don't make it in time for the example, if you just explain the reason, it will be okay. So just try to finish with the reason. One thing I actually noticed, and I was gonna say, is your intro was too long. You started, I disagree with that statement. I disagree with that statement, and then you repeat it. You say, I think that it's better to raise their salaries instead of giving them benefits. So don't repeat. If you already said, I disagree with the statement, it's kind of implied that you would rather, you would prefer to your salary to be raised rather than a benefit, right? So I just start with like that. I disagree with this statement and directly to your reason. Okay, since I don't know, if you're not paid enough, then you're gonna go looking for something else. So save time in the intro too.
Okay.
Okay, let's do another one. So maybe, okay, this one here. So this says, do you prefer text messages or phone calls as a way of communication? Support your points with specific examples and details. You'll have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so anyone wants to go?
Okay, I will go.
Okay, or you can go.
Honestly speaking, I prefer phone calls because it's for me it's very important to express emphasis in some ideas while talking. For example, when I talk with my friends um, using WhatsApp or calls, I always um, play with the sounds of my voice for giving strong to some ideas. And to me, it's very important that, and I suppose that's all.
Okay, great. So awesome, you had your reason, it was short. It's important to stress, to emphasize on some things, the tone, the expressions. And yes, you had your example as well. You talked about some specific apps or ways of communicating. Good. Maybe if you're gonna go with a conclusion, say something like, like that's why, or that's the main reason why I feel this way. Something like
And I suppose it was too short, right?
that. Too short? It was complete, but maybe your example was not that, I don't know. It wasn't that specific, right? It was like going over the same idea. I don't know. But it wasn't bad at all. I think it was okay. In that cases, when you cannot really think of an example that makes a difference, maybe you can add another reason, if you can think of another reason, right? So yeah, or you can always think of the opposite. So if you're saying, I prefer phone calls because I can express myself better, and then you say, for example, the other day I sent a text, or well, if you don't want a personal experience, you can say, when I sent a text, I don't know, I usually get misinterpreted maybe, or I don't know. So you can
Or
play with the other side, right?
yeah,
What
yeah, I was thinking that it could be a good idea to develop the second reason more than the first reason.
Yes, yeah, you can do that. So you can kind of do that contrast, right? I prefer the first one for this reason. And on the other hand, when I do the other one, these things happen to me. So that's why I don't like the other option. Yeah, it could be. Okay. So another one. Maybe. Okay, this one looks interesting. You will need to accomplish an assignment for a presentation. Which one will you choose? Act out a scene from a play with a partner. 2, explain your review of a novel you recently read. Or 3, read a selection of a poem or read a selection of poems. So you have those 3 options and 15 seconds to prepare. Okay. So anyone want to try?
Yeah, can I go?
Of course, you can go.
So I think it is better to act out a scene from a play. I would rather do that. I love playing, love acting, so it would be better to me to perform a play. Uh, for example, when I was in France for an exchange year, I have some theater classes, and it helped me a lot uh, in my other assignments for other classes, because I could express myself in front of many people and deliver uh, all my thoughts um, more clearly.
Okay, that's great. So
No
now
sé,
you,
I don't know.
I love your example. I think your example was really great. With the reasons, maybe careful when you have something like this. I know it's hard to explain because yes, maybe you just like acting, right? But you had a reason. Like in your example, you explained how acting helped you with other classes as well, right? Because it helped you become better at expressing yourself in front of an audience. So you could have worked with that reason. It started with that reason. So instead of saying that you like acting, say, well, I would prefer to do these because acting helps you with other skills as well, such as learning how to act or how to express something in front of an audience. And then you have your example of your exchange year or something.
Yeah. In this case, this example was real, so I think
Oh,
that was it. That's
but it doesn't have
that,
to. Yeah,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Okay, but it's great. Like that would be a good thing if you happen to have a question that actually relates to you or some experience that you had. But we don't know if that's going to be the case. So practice making up stories, and thinking of reasons. That's the only thing you need because we're good. So let's see. Okay, this one here. It says, do you agree or disagree with the statement that experienced doctors are better than young ones, than young doctors? So let's see. Okay. Who wants to go?
I'll go.
Okay. So you can.
I absolutely disagree that experienced doctors are better than young doctors, because I believe young doctors have a better mind for innovation. For example, I personally have a knee problem that required surgery, and I went to consult to doctors. One wanted me to be in a cast, like fully rest, no moving, no walking, like for 3 months, more or less. The other one, like I had to be like in a knee apparatus during 3 weeks, and then it was physical therapy, and I recovered completely.
Okay, great. Perfect. So I guess the first one was the experienced doctor, right? And the second one was the young doctor. That suggested the second option.
Yes.
Okay, don't forget to make an emphasis on that.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay, great. Was that example real?
Yes. Actually, yes.
Okay, well, that's nice. So you already had your opinion settled in your example too, so that's great. Yeah, it sounded real. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, this one here. So nowadays, people use extreme methods like surgery to change their appearance. They do this because they are trying to become more attractive. Do you think that this is a good idea? 15 seconds. Okay. So you want to go, Rodrigo?
Okay.
Right, hang on. Sorry.
Personally, I agree with the idea of surgery to change their appearance. If the people who do that have the money to surgery and have a nose job, or maybe add some breast or butt to their body, if they want to do it and help them with the confidence, that is a great tool. Many people nowadays don't have the confidence to talk to people, or they really hate their body, so that could help. I don't have an example of this.
Okay.
If I don't have an example, do I get like a lot of less points?
Not really, no. I mean, the important thing is that you try to be as detailed as you can, like appropriate detail. And you were mentioning some details, right? You actually had examples, like you mentioned, doing a nose job, breast surgery. So those are examples. Those could count as examples. Now, of course, they may not be so elaborated, but they count. So the important thing is that you try to develop your response and justify it as much as you can. So if you're saying that it's a good idea, you need to make sure that you're explaining why, right? So maybe I would have focused a little bit more on that part of confidence, which may be the
I
main.
actually disagree with surgery. I just came up with something like it. I think it's easier to support surgery in a short period of time to go against it in like many minutes. I don't know. I just did what I thought it would be
Disagree
easier.
with that. I disagree with that point, actually.
You
Yeah,
want to say?
No, I mean, I'm totally against surgery, but I mean, yeah, I find that in some cases it's better to support like the opposite point that what you're thinking, but usually like in my case, I have a point made already in my head about the topic, and like that's the way I can manage my time.
Right. So yeah, that's
And I
right. So
think I'm not sure if I responded very well to the question, because it was saying about extreme methods. I don't know if it's like just a nose job. A nose job is like a minor procedure, and a extreme. I don't know what does it mean.
that depends how you interpret it, right? Because extreme is something too ambiguous, because they do mention surgery, right? And a nose job is done through surgery. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it says like.
more
All right.
extreme methods is, I don't know, like lipo.
maybe,
But
yeah.
it's saying like surgery. I suppose. Yeah, that is true.
So yeah, it's okay. I think it was good. Like again, and I think I like that strategy. Even if you disagree, you just need to think of what somebody who's in favor would say. So what would somebody who's in favor of this say? So they would talk about confidence probably. So if you don't feel confident enough with your body And as you said, if you have the means to do it, then yes, you should go ahead. So yeah. Then for the example, you can say, so I know this friend who had a nose job, and I don't know, he looks so much more happy now. And yeah, that's it. So he improved his confidence or whatever. But I think that's great. Just don't go with your real answer. Just go with what somebody would say, the easiest one. And I think that's the most common point, right? Confidence. So, right.
Yeah, maybe I could go with against surgery because it's superficial and there are things more important in life, and you can spend your money in some things that I don't know, maybe a trip
course,
overseas. I don't know. That will be another me talking. Another, yeah.
Yes, that can work too. And that could maybe be even easier to illustrate, right? If you're saying you can spend that money on something else, something more important, maybe. Or you can talk about yourself, right? That's another thing. Like here, it's general. Do you think it's a good idea for these people to do that? But you can make it personal if you want to say, well, I personally would never consider doing this, like going through surgery to change my appearance, since I would prefer to spend the money on something else. And you could talk about what you would spend your money. So you don't necessarily have to go with a general view, but what you would do, right? It's another way to respond. Yeah.
Of course, depending on the means. I mean, now personally, I don't have like too much money to spend only in surgery. And when I heard surgery, the first thing I thought was women doing breast surgery or butt
Yeah.
surgery. I don't know. That was the thing that came to my mind, and people spending a lot of money on that, and that was it. Yeah, but thanks for the feedback. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there are actually many ways to respond, and it's not really about what you say, but how you explain it. So yes. Oh,
I have an answer. Would it be a good idea to use hypothetical situations? For example, if I had to go with the surgeon after the operation, I'm sure I will feel more comfortable with myself. I don't know, something like that.
yeah, it could be hypothetical, of course. You can even say it, right? You could say, so hypothetically speaking, if I had the means to do it, then I would definitely go for it, because I don't feel confident. And yes, you can talk about hypothetical scenarios, of course. Just careful with the grammar. If you're speaking hypothetically, careful with the grammar, right? You need to use that would conditional. But yeah, you can do it.
Yes, thank you.
So what do you guys think? Do you have any questions, any comments?
We're good.
Yeah, we're good. It was a good practice, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Glad to hear that. So I'm sending you the surveys. Today we need to fill out 2. And I'll be seeing you guys next week.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, please hang on. We have another one. I'm sending the other one, and then you can go. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. See you next class.
See